Hello everyone and welcome to Underwater Adventures with Alex Mirabal. Today we will be talking about how life is in an expedition, in an archaeological expedition offshore. Please stay with us because it may turn out not being as romantic as you believe. So let's dive into it. I'm making this video because I have realized, talking to my friends and people around me, that there is a big misconception about what expeditions are. I have been in expeditions my entire life. Expeditions normally last about 20 to 30 days offshore. In the case of our expeditions, it depends how long the ship can stay offshore with enough supplies and water and everything. And my friends and people in general, they tend to believe that going out in an expedition is the best thing that could happen to anyone, and that would be super interesting, and how can you be bored in an expedition when you are finding treasures from the past and you are going to places that you normally don't go, and
locations where you
yeah,
go
and see marvelous. You see marvelous stuff. I mean, thanks to the expeditions and thanks to my job, I have been privileged to visit places which I wouldn't have gone by myself. So I didn't even know existed. So that part is super interesting, and expeditions in general are okay. But what people don't realize, because what happened with the romanticism that the regular person who is not involved in this kind of work tend to believe and intend to put into an archaeological expedition. The image that people have from these expeditions are coming from documentaries that you obviously have to condense in 27 minutes everything that happened along 4 years or 5 years of expeditions in the same wreck. Obviously, at every 20 seconds of the documentary, there is an exciting find, there is a great story, there is a danger, there is something that when you put them in 4 years of expedition, then you have to understand that these events are quite spaced in time. So most of the days are like regular working days, like for everyone else. Yeah, it is a job. It is a job. People have to understand it as a job.
Yeah.
You go to work, and your job in this case is to explore all shipwrecks. That in itself is super nice, is super good, is the most passionate thing I have done in my life. I would do it again if I have the chance. But with this habit of doing the same thing every day, it also comes boredom. You repeat the same task every day. You are excavating a wreck, for instance, in a coral reef. You have to remove the entire coverage of the wreck, which has grown over the wreck in 400 years. There are weeks to do that. So you're hammering and chiseling in a place, bring these blocks of dead coral to a box and move them from A to B, long dives, and this monotony of what you're doing is not broken by the find of an interesting artifact or something that will tell you a story. That will come afterwards. But if you don't do that, you will never get there, because as I have explained, shipwrecks, and all shipwrecks are really buried under centuries of deposition and to growth. So those campaigns, those expeditions could become fairly boring. And I tell you, on top of it, you are in a confined space.
Yeah.
You live in a ship with another 15 guys or 12, it depends on the size of the ship, but you're there. When you are working in an office and you have an argument with a colleague, then at the end of the working day, you go back home,
Hopefully.
Stop in a bar, have a beer, talk to your friends which don't work with you, and you get away from this person which you have an argument with. In a ship, you cannot do that. If you have an argument with a person, you have to see this person every second because you have no place to hide or to have your own privacy. That takes a special type of person doing this job. It is not by chance that sailors and divers, we all share some sort of, it's a breath in which people share this kind of personalities, because it is hard to get your individuality and to be by yourself in a space like that. Of course, you learn to live with that, and actually it's not that bad, but it's something that adds to a very monotonous work every day, and that people from outside would say, hey guys, you're crazy. I mean, you are in a yacht or in an expedition boat in the Caribbean, in the paradise, diving in crystal clear waters every day. How can that be boring? People pay to do that. But it is, and it gets to you. That is it, even without taking into consideration something which is very important. Most of the team members, most of the crew that we are, because we are not kids anymore, most of the people who participate in the expedition have families. And these are 20 or 30 days in which you are away from your family. When we started, nowadays it's easier. Let's put it in this way. Nowadays it's easier. When I started, and in my first 10, 12, 15 years of expeditions, there was almost no way you could communicate with your house. You cannot call home, because in the place you were, there were first no mobile phones, and second, when they started being mobile phones, there was no signal in the area because you were offshore. There was no internet in the ship, of course. And you are all the time thinking how many problems are happening or accumulating when you are offshore, that you have absolutely no control on them, that you cannot help your family, your loved ones. You cannot help them, and you only waiting really stressfully for the end of the trip to go back home and see what happened. Nothing bad happened, oh great. But if something happened, you have to cope with it. This is a mindset that everyone in the ship has, even if we talk about it or not, because everyone has families and everyone has people that you have to take care of.
Loved ones.
Yeah, your loved ones.
Regardless,
Yeah,
yeah.
you have to. I mean, and this is something that, yes, for the moment, the best moment in the expedition is when you're diving. When you're diving, you are, you're focusing what you're doing. You are going down there. It's nice to dive. Everyone loves diving, and that's okay. But you dive in intense expedition. You dive 3 times a day, let's say 1.5, 2 hours per dive. If it's shallow enough, if it's warm enough, you can dive, let's say, about 6 hours a day. But the rest of the day, you're not diving. You are filling bottles, you are making paperwork, because in an archaeological expedition, you have to fill up a lot of paperwork after you dive. If you manage to find an artifact or someone find an artifact, you also have to make the paperwork for that artifact. Then to put all that into a database, it really gets busy. And thanks God, because you have to be busy in this expedition so your mind, it doesn't start rolling to things that you cannot control. So I'm telling all this just to let you understand that expeditions can be challenging for people who participate in them. Visitors, they always have a very good time. Mm-hmm. They go there for 2-3 days. Yeah. They see the best of the expedition. Obviously, they enjoy a lot. But for us, the workers, that we have to be in, let's say, a 20 times 10 routine. 20 days in the sea, 10 days at home, during 8 months a year for 15 years. That sets a routine which is a very difficult thing to overcome from the personal point of view, and to find your place there. The second thing is that when these boring jobs, away from your family, in the middle of the ocean, you have to do them, it is very common that people start losing motivation. People get demotivated because I'm doing this stupid job and I'm hammering rocks out of the seabed. I better be home. What I'm doing, I'm losing my youth. This all comes into the mind when you are diving, when you are after diving, you took a shower and you're resting and you're waiting for your next dive shift. Everything that comes to mind. In my case, I have to first gather enough motivation to keep motivated myself, but I also have to motivate my team because I have been a team leader always. But it doesn't matter if you are a team leader or a team member, you have to keep motivated. So it becomes, for certain periods of time, it becomes hard, it becomes really challenging on how to find solutions for this expedition to be successful, because you have to deliver results and you have to achieve results, but at the same time keep the people in a way that they are happy and motivated of what are they doing. So how is a regular day in an expedition? What do you do from the morning till the evening? It depends on the kind of expedition, if you are exploring or if you are excavating, but it's pretty much the same. You wake up really early, kind of 5:30 in the morning, 6 in the morning, have your breakfast or your coffee. You get ready to get into the water. If it's excavation, you start the dive shifts around 7:30 in the morning. If you are exploring, either you start swimming about 7 in the morning or running the magnetometer and the side scan sonar in the boat since very early in the morning through the entire day. Come back to the mothership, to the expedition boat for lunch. You have lunch, a little bit of rest, and about 2:30 in the afternoon you resume either the diving works or the survey works with remote sensing equipment like magnetometers or side scan sonar. Fact is that about 5 in the afternoon, you're already tired. You come out of the water 5:30. You have to fill up the bottles because in any serious expeditions, you cannot afford leave bottles empty. You have to have your bottles full for the next morning to be ready for the next dive, or if anything happened during the evening. Then you fill up the bottles. Obviously, this is a task that nobody likes to do. Filling bottles is something like every team member is always trying to sneak away from it. But we have a rotation and everyone has to fill bottles one day, and then the next day that it's your turn. It takes hours, and in the meantime, people are having dinner or finishing their paperwork that they have to be done after the dive, filling up all the forms and everything that you need to compile for the research. Because remember, this is not an expedition for fun. This is an expedition because we have an archaeological task to fulfill. Yeah, exactly. You have an objective and you have a research to carry. So it really demands, I mean, divers, we all hate paperwork. Yeah, that's because people became divers in the first place.
Most of us, even the ones that have to do it, I'm pretty sure we don't love it.
Certainly, but imagine that in the divers
Sure.
and people, seamen, this is something like, no way, man, I'm filling so much paper.
Yeah.
That is something which is not appreciated.
Yeah.
But then you get to a time about 6:30, 7 in the evening, which you already did whatever you need to be done, needs to be done, and you are there, and you cannot do much more. So I found out many years after leading expeditions, and because of the development of technology, that I had to create something in which the people in the evening were happy. I mean, some relaxed time in the boat without still going to the harbor, without going to land, where people can actually enjoy themselves a bit. That is not an easy task, because you can't, in an expedition offshore, you cannot have alcohol drinking in the evening as a way of relaxing, because there are many responsibilities that can be overlooked. So we don't do that, but I had to create something. And then I came up with the idea, because most of the guys were like video games, they loved it. So we set up a little server in the ship with everyone has their own laptop or any device that they could have to work with. So in the evening we play games and multiplayer games and stuff, and it became a very fun thing to do.
And team building.
Yeah, well, it's maybe it helps as well as a team building, but people were happy. People were looking forward to 6 or 7 in the evening, getting together and just kill each other for a while in a video game. It was something that it proven to be. I mean, the spirit of the team went up substantially, so you found people more happy. The other important thing, which many team members or people or team leaders or people who organize expeditions, they don't really take into account and they minimize or they really underestimate, is the role of the cook. You have a good cook and you have a cook that really please the team, you will have a happy team. And the other way around. You have a cook that really cannot cope with it, because being a cook in a ship is very difficult. That I can tell you, because the people who dive and the people who work in the archaeologists and everyone who is involved in the day-to-day operation, for instance, if we have bad weather, it's not possible to dive in the reef and people don't dive. But the cook has to cook every day, 3 times a day. It doesn't matter how bad the weather is. It doesn't matter how much the ship is moving. He has to cook, and he better cooks well, because people on board after 2 or 3 hours or 4 hours are very hungry, and they feel that they need to refill their energy in a nice way. And we buy the food for that, and we prepare the supplies for that, and the cook has to be very good. This is something that I realized very early in my career, and I have always been very keen in finding the right cook. It's not only that he cooks well. This is obviously the most important thing, that his dishes are of the liking of the team.
Yeah. Sorry to interrupt you, because I mean, food is not only nutrition but also comfort.
Exactly.
So when you're far away from home.
But these cook, I mean the good cooks that we have on board, they can also identify individualities. I mean, this guy, he doesn't like so much fish, for instance, so I will prepare for him a day that, I mean, it's not a la carte. People will not ask from a menu. Is what we have on board is what we eat, but there is always margin for a little bit of comfort for the people who are working, and a good cook will understand that, will understand and will please people to the best of his capacities or what he has on board. He can also is not able to go to land and buy something to make this kind of dish, so he has the creativity that is very important. So I'm taking a while in explaining why the cooking is important, because just in case that you are preparing an expedition, please take it into account. This will make your expedition more successful. This will make your team members more happy, and yourself, and it is as simple as finding a good cook. Because and now I'm talking about how hard and how underrated has been the work of a cook in an expedition, because this guy works when someone is not working because there is bad weather or whatever of the situations that prevent you from working. He has to work. You are feeding a team, and you have to feed them every day, 3 times a day. But on top of it, when we are offshore in the ship, your working hours are 24 hours working day. You don't have this jure of, okay, I start working at 8 in the morning and I finish at 6 in the afternoon. That doesn't exist in the sea or in an expedition offshore. Nowadays, where there is so much awareness of how important is rest for the people, and the people have certain amount of hours of working, it becomes a little bit shocking for us that we have been working in a different way for so many years. Because what happened with the ship? I mean, we are talking about expedition ships that hold 15, 20 crew members and team members. These are not big ships. So the technology and the instruments and this ship has, they are not as reliable as in an airplane or these super modern ships that cross the oceans and they have all these automatic things. No. We have to change the generator every certain amount of hours. From the generator depends that you have power, so electricity, and then you have light, and you have your freezer still can hold your food in a good condition. Your bilge pumps work because the batteries are charged, are properly charged. So sometimes it's 3 in the morning, you're sleeping, deeply sleeping because you're tired, and you hear, because that happens to everyone, it's not only the team leader or the captain of the boat, this happens to everyone. You hear a change in the revolutions of the generator, people wake up. What happened? And you are working then. If the generator needs a repair at that time of the night, you have to repair it. You cannot just simply wait for tomorrow that at 8 in the morning my work starts, so I start fixing the generator. That's not possible. Bad weather, storms, hurricanes, they come anytime in the day. You could be sleeping, you could be diving, you could be cooking, and you have to take care of bad weather. The ship is the only thing that separates you from the bottom of the sea. So you really have to take care of the ship. Everything which is within the ship that helps you being afloat is something that needs care. And this has no time. You could come out of the water, you could be very tired, but if there is something to repair that will be in your safety, you will have to do it. So that's why I mentioned that we have 24-hour work days, and the cook helped us survive in that. He also have 24 hours, so he helped us survive in that. By the way, you may have noticed that every time that I talk about the crew on the team, I'm always referring to guys and men. Well, that was because back in the day when we were in these expeditions and we were younger, also our ships were very basic. We couldn't accommodate women in the team, and that slowly turned to like a routine. You know, there was only men on board. Imagine our ships in times in Cuba and in the beginnings in Cape Verde, they have only one toilet, one bathroom for 15 people. Our rooms or cabins, they were not so. There was a space in which you have 12 beds. And something which is curious, even in that common area where we were living with 12 team members laying around in their own beds, people always try to have their little universe by the side of their bed, you know, with the photos on the bulkheads and these little reminders of home, of families that we were away from. But that didn't really work to have women in our team for long terms of time. Then, when things got a little bit more sophisticated and the ships were better, yes, obviously there were many of girls in our team. But from all these stories I'm telling now, in the beginning we were just a bunch of guys. We were a bunch of guys. We tried to survive within us for so many days without getting crazy. And this takes me to another subject which make life in the expedition a little bit more easy, which were the pranks. I mean, in every expedition, you will always have people who make pranks on the others because you see that you have to have a good laugh. Well, if you are not the target of the prank, but you always will have a good laugh. Obviously, rookies and newly incorporated members of the team will be the target of the most classic pranks. There were every kind of prank. I mean, there were some very cruel, but there were some which were really fun. And there were some which were also so sophisticated that just because it happened, you could realize who was the prankster, because it could only come from him. This kind of thing, we had plenty of stories of people who came. One of the classics was that anyone that came into the ship was told in the first expedition of that person, it was told, yeah, now we have to put the cover of the propellers. The cover of the propellers, something to protect the propellers of the ship. That is not necessary. No ship needs a cover of the propellers because it's in the water and it has nothing to do. It happened to my friend Faure, and the guy on top of it, the guy is kind of a genius. So he knows everything about everything. But he was new in the expedition. He wanted to prove that he was ready to give his contribution to the expedition in the best of his capacities.
He's
And
an engineer, right?
yeah, he's an aeronautical engineer,
And
and
he
that
was covering
yeah,
propellers.
yeah, because you know what? In the planes that he was working in the airplanes, that happens.
Okay.
You should cover the propellers when the airplane is outdoors, so it doesn't get rust or anything.
Yeah.
So for him, it was not. I mean, it was probably was very unfair to play it on him,
Yeah.
but in the evening, there was a late evening, the first day of expedition, and someone said, nah, now we have to put the protection of the propellers. And we all knew it was a prank. So everyone was saying, no, no, but I did it yesterday, so it's not my turn, and nobody wanted to do it. And obviously, he, being new in the team and wanted to show that he was able to help, he said, no problem, I put it. It was like 10 in the evening. Everyone was already, they took a bath. Everyone was already clean, ready to go to bed. And then this guy said, yeah, I'm doing it. So we gave him some canvas and things that we have on board. He jumped in the sea, went onto the ship, put the protection of the propellers with ropes and everything. I mean, I never have seen the protection of the propellers so properly done. That it was perfect. And then when he came out of the water, well, everyone started laughing, and we told him that it was a prank. He told me at the moment, he said, yeah, I was a little bit surprised because first, nobody wanted to go in the water at that time to put the protection of the propeller. But when I said I will, and I jump in the water, like 5 people jumped with me, because I mean, people jump in the water because they want to see him. They want to see him put in the thing. Well, when it finished, I told him, look, but I have bad news for you, but you have to take them off, because we cannot spend the night in the middle of the, nearby the reefs with the boat on anchor, with the propellers that you cannot use the engines. I mean, we have to take this out because it's unsafe. So he took a second dive, but thanks God, he's a great guy. He didn't get too cross. There were many of these pranks that make our life easier to go through the long expeditions and being away from home. Obviously, there were certain, and this is everyone who lives in the sea or works in the sea, a seaman, will understand what I'm saying. There are certain unwritten rules of things you don't play with, because that would never be funny. That would upset one of the team members. I mean, things related to family and things related to things that you have away from you and you don't have control of it. So that makes, and that is what I have always said to my colleagues, my friends, my family. When you're building a team, you want to select people who are good team members. They don't need to be the best in their discipline. They don't have to be the best in their job. This, you can train, you can get better, but good people and people who can work and function as team members, that they understand that people around you is not just your co-workers. These are people that you relay, I mean, you put your life in their hands and vice versa. So this is like the ideal team that you will put together along the years. I have been very lucky with that, because my team, it has been coming from every place in the world, but they all share this kind of attitude and this kind of spirit, which is the team member. And this is what really helped us surviving years and years and years of expedition, even if the results in one are very good and the result in the other expedition are very poor. We still stick together and, well, looking for new challenges all the time. Well, thank you for watching. This has been all for now. If you like the video, please give it a like, leave your comment, subscribe to the channel, press this little bell or something which is over there that will help you to know if I'm putting up another video. And please let me know what can I develop in another video regarding all these subjects related to this, and I will do it with pleasure. So see you next time.